안녕하세요, 김 선생이에요. Hello there, I'm a Korean teacher Kim. Welcome to my very first video. Today I'm gonna cover just 5 differences between Korean and English that I think it's quite useful to know if you're learning Korean. This is more like an introduction video, so at the end of this video, you'll be able to have an overview of Korean grammar. Let's get started. First of all, I'd like to have a look at the position of verbs. As you already know, English word order is SVO, which means the subject comes first, the verb second, and then the object. But Korean's word order is SOV, which means the subject comes first, and then the verb comes at the end of the sentences. This fact can actually tell us many things. Let's find out. English has relatively fixed word order, so the position of words indicates elements of sentences. A cat chases a dog. 고양이가 개를 쫓는다. According to the word order, we know that a cat is the subject and then the dog is the object. But if you change the word order like this one here, a dog chases a cat, then we have different subject and object. So the meaning of these two sentences is not the same. On the other hand, Korean has more flexible word order. So even if I change the word order, 개를 고양이가 쫓는다. The subject is still the cat, and the object is still the dog. And we can easily identify subjects and objects in sentences. How? Because of the particles we have. Here, 가 is the subject particle, which shows us what a subject is. And 를 is the object particle, which shows us what an object is. Languages with SOV word order, like Korean, have many particles and verb endings. Verb endings? We will get to that later. Another feature of languages with SVO word order is prepositions, like in a bag. In comes before a noun. But Korean, like other languages with SOV word order, has a strong tendency to use postpositions rather than prepositions. Like 가방 안에, 가방 a bag, 안 in, 에 is a place particle. Here 안 comes after a noun. And in English, auxiliary verbs and modal verbs are placed before the main verb. I can help you. Can is before the main verb help. In Korean, we also have something like auxiliary verbs. Not exactly the same, but it is like helping verbs. For example, 이거 입어보세요. Try this on. 입다, the main verb, is located in front of the 아어보다, auxiliary verb. Oh, and one more thing. In English, the main verb is infinitive, but in Korean, it is combined with auxiliary verbs. Lastly, in English, adverb comes after a verb, like he runs fast. But in Korean, adverb comes before the verb. 그는 빨리 달린다. But this is quite obvious because the verb should be always at the end of the sentences. Let's move on to pronouns. In English, there are lots of pronouns. Here's just an example of English personal pronouns. As you can see, there are subject pronouns, object pronouns, possessive pronouns. I'm sure you're familiar with this chart. So let's just check Korean personal pronouns. Ta-da! These are what we have. We don't have many, but we do have subject pronouns. First person singular I is 나, polite form 저. And you singular is 너, polite form 당신. But 당신 is a bit special. We don't use it a lot. In Korea, it is common to address others using their names, titles, or status in society rather than pronouns. So instead of 당신, you could use like 선생님, teacher, 할머니, grandmother, 언니, or you can say 여기요, over here, or 저기요, hey there. And third person singular, he and she, we don't really have one. You might say 그 and 그녀, but these are written languages, so you can find them only in Korean literatures or K-pop lyrics. Instead of 그 and 그녀, we use 그 남자, the man, 그 여자, the woman, with definers. Or 얘, this person, 쟤, that person, 걔, the person who's not present. But these are quite informal. It is usually used among close friends to refer to other people who are the same age or younger. And we is 우리, polite form 저희. But not like 우리, 저희 doesn't include the listener. You plural is 너희, and they, we don't have one. You might think 그들, but it is also a written language like 그 and 그녀. So we rather use 그 사람들, means that people. Then how about object pronouns and possessive pronouns? We don't really need them. Why? Because of particles. You can just add the object particle 를 to the subject pronoun. And we have the object pronouns. Like 나를, 너를, 그 남자를, and so on. And with the possessive particle 의, then we can make possessive adjectives. 나의, 너의, 그의. 의 is always followed with a noun. So mine in English would be 나의 것. 것 is a thing in English. As you can see, what you need to know is subject pronouns and many particles. Now let's have a look at the conjugations of verbs and adjectives. English verbs are conjugated according to subject and tense. But Korean verbs and adjectives are conjugated according to not the subject, but tense, politeness and formality, passive and causative form, and sentence types. For formality and politeness, we have 6 different speech levels, and we have 5 sentence types. That's why we have so many verb endings. Here, I just want to remind you that not just verbs, but also adjectives are conjugated in Korean. Some of Korean scholars classify Korean adjectives as a state verb. Here's why. She's beautiful. 그 여자는 예쁘다. Subject and adjectives. There is no verb here, but it is a correct sentence because Korean adjectives can function like verbs. That's why adjectives are also conjugated like verbs in Korean. Common beginner's mistake is that they try to add 이다 somewhere here because to be is 이다. But 이다 is always combined with nouns together, like she's a student. 그 여자는 학생이다. In summary, be verbs is followed by either nouns or adjectives, right? In this case, Korean adjectives behave like verbs. And in this case, with noun, we use 이다. And don't forget, they both need to be conjugated. Next one is honorifics. The most common forms of honorifics in English would be honorary titles. For example, Mr., Miss, Captain, Doctor, Professor, Mr. President, and so on. We use that too, but not just that. We have a very complex honorific system. If you're a super beginner, you don't need to worry about it yet. There are usually 3 participants in a conversation: speaker, subject, and listener. When you talk to someone in Korea, first thing you have to do is figuring out their ages and social status. Because depends on that, you can choose what type of honorifics you're gonna use and also the verb endings. That is why we ask others' age when we meet someone new. We're not nosy people. We have to know it so that we know how to address the others. We have 3 types of honorifics. To explain this properly, it's gonna take for a while. Therefore, I'm gonna make another video to cover honorifics. So if you're interested, you can watch it after this video. Here, I'm just gonna give you a quick summary. First, subject honorifics. It is to honor the subject in the sentence. 선생님께서 가신다 means teacher is going. In general, for subject honorifics, 께서 honorific subject particle is used, and also honorific suffix 님 as well. And she, honorific free finer ending, is added to verbs. Secondly, we have object honorifics. It is used when the object needs to be honored. 나는 할아버지께 선물을 드렸다. I gave my grandpa a present. The indirect object 할아버지 needs to be honored. So for object honorifics, we generally use 께, the honorific dative particle, and certain honorific verbs. Lastly, addressee honorifics. Depends on the age and social status of someone you talk to. You can choose one of the 6 speech levels. Each level has different verb endings, which indicate your attitude toward your addressee. I mentioned it earlier when we talked about the factors of conjugations. So just by hearing verb endings in a conversation, you know who's older and how close they are. On a daily basis, we normally use 3 different speech levels out of 6. This is quite important to know because it is used in every sentence. For more information, please watch my next video covering honorifics. Now you might wonder why we have so complicated honorific system. Let me explain why. You know who he is? If you're learning Korean, you should know him. He is the King Sejong who created Korean alphabet Hangul. He was the 4th king of the Joseon dynasty. And at that time, Confucianism, a system of social and ethical philosophy, was the primary belief system. The Confucian social order was centered on 5 key relationships: ruler to people, father to son, husband to wife, older brother to younger brother, friend to friend. Except friend to friend, one side had more power, this side had to behave morally, and the inferior person in the relationship had to obey and respect the superior. So age and the social hierarchy were the determinant of how one treats others. That is why we have so complicated honorific system. Lastly, I would like to mention the differences in expressions and discourses. English is speaker-oriented and Korean is listener-oriented. If a stranger talks to you, you'd say, "Do I know you?" Here the subject I is used. But in Korean, we would say, "저를 아세요?" means, "Do you know me?" Here the subject you is used. One more example. If I ask you, "Did you have lunch?" or "Didn't you have lunch?" If you did, the answer is always yes. So the answer depends on you. But when you answer negative yes/no questions in Korean, you have to pay attention. Because the answer in Korean would be the opposite of English. 네, yes means what you said is correct. 아니요, no means what you said is not correct. The answer depends on what the other person said. If it's right, yes. If it's wrong, then no. So in this case, 점심 안 먹었어요? Didn't you have lunch? If you did, you should say, "No, I ate it." 아니요, 먹었어요. English is possession-oriented. However, Korean is existence-oriented. Do you have change? 잔돈 있어요? I have an elder sister. 저는 누나가 한 명 있어요. In English, have is used, but in Korean, 있다, to be, to exist, is used. There is also a difference between Korean and English to indicate old and new information. In English, indefinite articles a or an is used to indicate new information, and definite article da is used to indicate older information. But in Korean, we don't have indefinite articles. For that, the subject particle 이 or 가 is used for the new information, and the tema particle 은 or 는 is used for old information. There is an apple. The apple is green. 사과 한 개가 있어요. 그 사과는 초록색이에요. In English, verbs are conjugated according to subjects. So it should be indicated if it's a singular noun or plural nouns. But in Korean, verbs are not conjugated according to the subject. So for us, it's not so important if it's an apple or apples. That's why we don't have indefinite articles and we don't always use the plural particle to make a noun plural. But we have classifiers, in other words, counting words. Classifiers play an important role in East Asian languages, including Korean. If we want to say how many exactly, then we use classifiers. We have several classifiers depending on the type of its referent. For example, 개 is a classifier for common things. 대 classifier for vehicles. 명 classifier for people. 벌 classifier for clothes, and so on. Lastly, the difference in determiners. In English, there are two demonstrative determiners, this and that. In Korean, there are three of them, 이, 그, and 저. This could be 이, referring something close to a speaker. That could be 그 or 저. 그 refers to something far from a speaker but close to a listener. or it also refers to something already mentioned. 저 refers to something far from a speaker and a listener. So if you want to say, could you pass me that salt? That would be, 저에게 그 소금 좀 건네주시겠어요? Here 그 is used, not 저. That's all for today. I know it's a lot of information in 20 minutes. As I said, it is more like an introduction, so please don't get frustrated if you didn't understand some parts. I'm sure it will slowly come to you. On my Instagram, you can learn and practice Korean with me. Thank you for watching my very first video. If you have any questions, leave me a comment or DM me on Instagram. Do you find my video helpful? Then please subscribe my channel. 그럼 다음에 또 만나요. 안녕.